Welcome everybody to the Hurting Humanity channel. I just want to wish everybody out there a happy, great Shakeout Day. Because if you didn't know, this past Thursday was National and International Shakeout Day. You might say, what does that mean? Everybody does the hokey pokey and shakes and turns it all about? No. International Shakeout Day is to condition civilians all around the earth into being mentally prepared for a natural earthquake event to occur. And of course, we all know that these drills are laughable, and I'll show you the video clips of the drills because this reminds me of the stuff I used to play from the 1950s where they would tell us that there was going to be a nuclear attack on America. And in order to prepare for that, they would literally have kids in classrooms go underneath their desks as if the desk was going to protect them from a nuclear bomb. Well, in this event, it's the same exact thing. But obviously, this is being done for psychological reasons. It's not being done to make people out there safe. Because if there is an earthquake and you're hiding under your desk, the chances are that something is probably going to fall directly on your head, probably even the desk. So why do they do these things? Well, they prepare you. Because the more they do events like this every year, which are called Great Shakeouts, the more people are prepared for an actual earthquake to occur. And when it occurs, of course, they've already been trained to think that it's a naturally occurring event. But the reality of the matter is that it's not a naturally occurring event at all. So it wasn't just on the West Coast. It wasn't just California. It wasn't just Washington. This was occurring all around the earth, where even places where you would scratch your head and say, what? They get earthquakes? Like the Northeast or the upper Midwest or just some of the states that were listed on there. But it's not even just statewide. It's around the earth. Canada, Japan, New Zealand, all countries on this day decided to practice the drills you're about to see, which also included tsunami sirens and tsunami warnings. So these drills were not just occurring in schools, they were occurring in towns that were sounding their alarms. And of course, this is all in the name of safety, right? These drills, as we know, are always in the name of safety, just like the drills that were going on during the 11th day of September or at the Boston Marathon, or the drills that went live with Event 201, or even the drills that went live in Lahaina, right? Just convenient, they run these drills, but they never seem to protect anyone. Kind of like also those drills that always happen at schools, they never seem to end up protecting anyone because the same schools that run the drills are always the same schools that have the actual events occur. So this is nothing more than a test run, but most importantly, it's a psychological experiment to condition people, again, to continually think that these are naturally occurring things. Here is a look at what this laughable propaganda looks like, where they're literally doing this to children, polluting their minds. The parents are okay with it because the parents are clueless, letting their kids go to school and practice by simulating an earthquake by going underneath their desk. It's unreal.
Now get ready to drop cover and hold on. Maybe you did this just a few minutes ago. Millions of Californians will take part in an earthquake drill. They did this morning. CBS 8's Chris Grow live along Harbor Island. In fact, no, you're out of Gage Elementary School to tell us about the Great California Shakeout. So what were the students doing there, Chris?
This is a great opportunity for the students for a number of different reasons we'll get to in just a bit. But first off, to be able to practice this. Of course, the drill, making sure that they're able to put themselves in the best position in case anything like a 7.8 magnitude or worse were to strike. And that's exactly what the Great Big Shakeout, the Great Shakeout as it is called, is meant to give us a chance to actually practice when these potentially life-threatening instances of natural disasters can happen, to try to save lives. And we were able to be in a classroom. There's actually a Spanish immersion class that was going on throughout the day as normal when this at 10:17, they went ahead and made the announcement this drill was going on. And so what they did is what many people across San Diego, across California did, which is drop cover and hold on. They got underneath their desks. You could see them. And they were also instructed on how to act afterwards. There was even an instance, the principal was telling us, where there was a bit of surprise students, if you will, where the students were told that they were going to then tell their teachers afterwards that they had a fake broken leg or a fake injury, and then the teachers had to then practice their training. So this was more than just the drop, cover, and hold for 1 minute. This was a school-wide training exercise that we got to get a firsthand look at. But then it also brought up a reminder for parents at home that they need to be prepared in the instance of a large earthquake that could be devastating to our community. In fact, we spoke with the principal who hopes parents learn this lesson.
Oh, I would love for the kids to teach their parents that being prepared and knowing what to do. So hopefully they'll go home and talk to their parents and say, now, what's our plan at home if something happens? Do we have a plan? Do we have a spot that we're going to meet? Because that oftentimes can, be a hindrance. Is the earthquake happens, but then they don't have a family meeting spot afterwards.
The Great Shakeout at Arlington Elementary.
To promote safety and awareness around natural disasters like earthquakes, according to the Great Washington Shakeout, 43 K-12 schools and about 22,000 people practice this drill.
You got to be prepared for the future.
This is an earthquake drill. This is an earthquake drill.
And for young students at Arlington Elementary, it is important for them to learn safe habits early on.
It is better for them to be well planned and prepared so they're not scattered and they're staying calm and able to listen to adult direction for their safety.
Which keeps students' hearts, minds, and especially their limbs away from danger.
If it were to fall, then it would basically protect our head. It's kind of like a hard umbrella. Sometimes it's not going to be a drill. So sometimes you need to practice for the actual thing if it were to happen.
But it seemed the drill had mixed reviews.
How was it?
It was good-ish. It was kind of like scary.
And it's not just students. On 10/17 at 10:17 a.m., work offices, government agencies, nonprofits, and many more opt into the Great Shakeout drill.
So again, there's a certain component to that is psychological. And that's why I use the clip where you hear that boy talking. I mean, he sounds just like a communist foot soldier. You got to be prepared, the kid says, sounding like he knows exactly what's happening, sounding like an adult, right? Which is part of this whole entire transition we're seeing where these children act this way, they talk this way, they're getting empowered with propaganda. So, of course, they think naturally they're right, and then the global elites tell us that we need to empower children more because they're the future and this is their future, and people like me and you are a detriment to that. They don't have the slightest clue, and they're certainly not learning what they should learn at school. Like, hey, maybe we should do earthquake drills because the government is preparing to turn on the earthquake machine, right? You know, that earthquake machine that Nikola Tesla built and created, that's factually documented that it exists, right? They don't want to mention that, and they certainly don't want to mention the fact that we're coming up here. And how ironic would it wouldn't be ironic, it would be very, very, very strategic that if Donald Trump is placed in power, there's always that connection between Donald Trump and Tesla, because Donald Trump's uncle is supposedly the one who was brought in when Nikola Tesla died, John G. Trump, who was an MIT professor and esteemed electrical engineer, was brought in to, quote, determine if any of the belongings in the inventor's estate, which included weapons of mass destruction Tesla called the death ray, would be dangerous if they fell into enemies' hands. And of course, the rumor is that, well, it is in fact the Trump family who gained access to the patents over the earthquake machine through John G. Trump, Donald Trump's uncle. So maybe we're all looking in the wrong direction, although everybody who listens to my channel is looking in the right direction because we know these people are all compromised. But if they are to put Trump back in power and we're looking at civil unrest, could easily just be the distraction for them turning on the earthquake machine. And if you think that it's a conspiracy about the earthquake machine, here's just a little clip of, well, the earthquake machine and Nikola Tesla's connection to it.
A fabled earthquake machine has also been linked to the enigmatic inventor Nikola Tesla. Some accounts say Tesla built a steam-powered oscillator, which was designed to vibrate at various frequencies. The machine reportedly caused violent vibrations in a New York building, causing panic among people in the area who thought it was an earthquake. Tesla wanted to use the machine to transmit electricity via vibrations in the ground. The genius inventor believed that a powerful enough machine could even cause earthquakes. However, the idea did not progress beyond the prototype stage.
One sunny afternoon, Nikola Tesla was in his Houston Street laboratory in Manhattan. He was experimenting with oscillators, which are electronic devices used to emit sound waves and even vibrations. He attached the little device to a support beam in his lab that ran the length of the building. He switched it on and started to gradually adjust the frequency it was emitting until, bingo, the beam started to vibrate. He had found the resonant frequency of the column. The test was proving to be a success. He started to feel a vibration in the floor as the sound wave traveled down the length of the beam and spread under his feet. He increased the intensity on the knob. It was just a quiver, but his downstairs neighbor began to notice his ceiling shaking. The other neighbors thought it was a heavy truck banging down the street, but the shaking persisted and grew stronger and stronger. The vibration spread across the entire floor of the laboratory and into the neighboring buildings. Some of the locals in Little Italy and Chinatown began spilling onto the streets, thinking an earthquake was happening. The trembling was incessant and horrific, causing windows to shatter, pipes to stretch. The local police on Mulberry Street, they felt it too. An earthquake in New York City? Impossible. The police station was right around the corner from Tesla's lab, and they were all too familiar with the strange lights and sounds which would happen throughout the day and night from that building. As the ground shook, furniture was moving, pipes were breaking, and the officers thought the police headquarters was about to collapse. 2 police rushed out the door toward Tesla's lab. They reached his building. The vibrations felt even stronger there. They ran up the stairwell, facing the fear that the building might collapse on them. As they burst through the door to Tesla's lab, they were met with a bizarre sight. Tesla, swinging a heavy sledgehammer at one of the iron beams, he smashed the little device off and the vibrations instantly stopped. No more earthquake. Tesla was surprised to see the 2 uniformed police officers just staring at him in shock. He approached them with the sledgehammer still in his hands and said, "Gentlemen, I'm sorry, but you are just a trifle too late to witness my experiment. I found it necessary to stop it suddenly and unexpectedly in an unusual manner, just as you entered. If you will come around this evening, I will have another oscillator attached to this platform, and each of you can stand on it. You will, I am sure, find it a most interesting and pleasurable experience. Now, you must leave, for I have many things to do. Good day, gentlemen." Apparently, Tesla was completely oblivious to the near destruction he had caused in the neighboring buildings and the neighborhood. The police were, I'm sure, as dumbfounded as the rest of the neighborhood. Everyone at that time knew who Tesla was. He was routinely in the New York papers. You can actually look up the digitized papers from early 1900s New York City and find dozens and dozens of newspaper articles interviewing Tesla about lightning or electricity or reporting on his new experiments. He was an odd but welcome fixture of the modern industrial age.
So it's also not a coincidence that before some of the biggest earthquakes we've seen recently in Turkey, in central Morocco, that there was bizarre things happening in the sky, kind of like all the stuff that we've been talking about on my channels recently, right, that have been happening in the sky. Not just the hurricanes that are happening with these weird weather patterns, but the northern lights appearing constantly in the sky. Because before those earthquakes, if you don't remember, I remember a guy who sounded a lot like me who had his YouTube channel removed at that time period. But before the earthquake in Turkey, there was this appearing over the sky in Turkey about 24 hours before the actual earthquake hit. And of course, There were things like this in central Morocco, these bizarre lights that appeared in the sky right before they got nailed with earthquakes.
Marrakech, dans la nuit du vendredi 8 au samedi 9, Brocoli TV. Regardez dans le ciel. Expliquez-moi en commentaire, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
So boy, those look a lot like what we would think of as maybe some type of anomaly in the sky. I mean, they would tell us it's UFOs, but it's clearly, very clearly that they're turning on their earthquake machine. So one of the hardest things for people to wrap their heads around is the government's ability to manipulate the weather, right? And I've always talked about that sentence we've all heard when we were children, when we were young. We still hear it to this day. You can't control Mother Nature. Oh, except when, in places like Dubai, they're making it rain, literally, right? Creating flash floods in these cities through cloud seeding and geoengineering. Oh, well, that's different, right? They tell us you can't control the weather. You can't manipulate the weather. You can't control Mother Nature. But then on the flip side, they tell you, hey, look at this wonderful technology in Dubai. They can make it rain to stop droughts. Because then people go, well, why don't you just stop droughts in other countries everywhere? How about third world countries make it rain? That should be our top priority, food and water, right? For the civilians to survive, because we do need that. That is our fuel, right? It's our lifeline to live, food and water, right? But don't go there. Don't ask questions like that, because then people will realize we can manipulate and control the weather. Then people might realize that we actually have patents and documentation that shows that we do these things already. In fact, the one big thing we're all waiting for is them to create a massive earthquake, because the predictive programming is everywhere. It's not just for hurricanes. We've seen tsunamis wiping out cities like New York. Don't forget this past year, we had a simulation. We had a real drill run. And it wasn't a drill where people got under their desks. It was an earthquake right outside of New York City, a pretty large one that was felt throughout New York and New Jersey. So they're preparing to do this all across the earth right now. And of course, instead of you getting suspicious about it, they've already told you this is all naturally occurring. This is because of climate change. Those are the things they want you to think about. And they want these children to think there is no such thing as this. Now, of course, the world would be a different place if kids went to school and learned about what the government actually had the capability of doing. Well, then they wouldn't believe any of this fiction that they believe as reality, right? As climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if that was the case, then none of us would actually even be going to school. We would just be arresting all of these criminals who are doing these things to humanity. But thus the psychosis continues along, and we have children in schools who are literally told by their teachers to hop underneath their desk as they prepare for an earthquake. And like I said earlier, this is more psychological than it is for safety. Anybody out there that sees that and says, well, this is a real good idea, this is really going to help my kids. It's the same with the events that happen in the school. These are simulations, okay? Has anyone heard about the drills happening in these schools actually preventing an event? Well, of course not, because the events don't naturally occur in the first place, so the drills aren't needed, right? But at these schools where they actually do happen, they've always run the drills, and what ends up happening? Nothing. Oh, nobody stops the guy from entering the school. Nobody takes the guy down. There's, there's casualties all over the place. But then they come out and tell you, well, thankfully, because we ran the drills, there could have been a lot more casualties. And everyone goes, oh, thankfully we ran the drills. There could have been a lot more. I mean, that's all that they need to hear, right? Instead of saying, wait, well, if you're going to run drills, isn't the drill supposed to be to stop it from getting worse or stop it from happening because there's a lot of people and there's probably usually just one person respond? No. Don't think. Okay? We're telling you that This is how it's happening at the school. We're going to run drills so that you're prepared for when it does happen. But all you're really supposed to do is do a training exercise so we could allow the police to come into the school. We could shut down the school, everything that goes along with the protocol for these to become live events. And that's how it works. And there's nothing different between that and this. Nothing different. Because nobody except a completely brain dead sheeple can look at this and say, wow, that's great that they're running these drills. Because in the event that there's an earthquake while my kid's in the institution, I hope he goes underneath his desk. And then I hope that all of the rubble from the roof or whatever else is around doesn't bury him underneath it. Right? Not that there's a real way to prepare for an actual earthquake. I'm not saying that this is what they should be teaching them opposed to that. What I'm saying is that it won't be a natural event. And what people should be learning about is what the government's really up to. Then we wouldn't have to worry about the government using an earthquake machine on its civilians, right? But it's almost like most of these sheeple enjoy the abuse. They like getting tasered in the balls. They enjoy the government laughing in their face by telling them, hey, you know what? Stop, drop, and roll. There's a fire. Get under your desk. There's a nuclear bomb. Get under your desk, kids. There's an earthquake. Get under your desk. What are they going to tell them next? Hurricane drills? Why don't you go stand on the roof and hold up a baseball bat? I mean, are people really listening to this stuff? This is a conditioning mechanism. That's what this is. They're preparing them for it to actually occur. They're going to tell everybody, when it actually occurs, of course it's a natural event. How could anyone think it's not a natural event? And these children are just trained. They're just trained at a young age to think that all this terrorizing that's going on is natural. Kids are losing their minds. They're unhinged going to schools and going after other kids, even though they're not even, records show that they never even attended that school in the first place, or they were first day students at the school. Nothing that makes any sense whatsoever. Or, there's just an earthquake. Get underneath your desk, folks. This is conditioning for everybody out there to accept this stuff that they're doing to us is naturally occurring. That's all that it is. It's laughable in a sense because it's so ridiculous that we're at a stage in our lives, or I should say a stage in society, where people see this stuff and they don't say a word. They don't say, what? Huh? They're getting under their desk. They don't look at it and say, wait a minute. Why all of a sudden why are we preparing for earthquakes? Why are we been preparing? Why are we doing these things, right? Well, because this is how mind control works, you see? They're preparing you for what's about to happen so that you're mentally prepared, not just to deal with it, to accept it as reality. It happened because of this. It happened because of that. Instead of you saying, oh, it happened because my government is gone completely rogue against us. And they're killing people and they're going into schools, creating events, and they're actually making earthquakes and hurricanes using government patented technology that they told us in the beginning was to protect us. But even when that was happening, how people didn't say, whoa, we're not giving anyone authority to create this type of crap. Oh, well, it's your own government's got the authority. Oh, okay, so they're going to make earthquakes against Russia? Yeah, that's what it's for. They're going to make a big earthquake in China. Right. And now all these years later, they like to pretend like they don't have this technology, that it's all conspiracy, even though it's all documented. And then just say that people like us need to be silenced, because how could we look at the government as being rogue? I mean, all they do every day is spit in your face and hold up the middle finger while they kick you right in the nads. Yeah, we could trust them. They haven't gone rogue. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.